Well, it's an honor to be here in Provo. I'm an at-will employee, so I'm quickly putting my boss's picture up. Whoops, that one went a little too fast. There we go. On behalf of Governor Herbert, Lieutenant Governor Bell, we appreciate the opportunity that you're inviting the state to come down and talk to us. We'll soon hear from a good friend and colleague of mine, Alan Matheson, as well from the governor's office. But like you, Governor Herbert is very focused on the future because our population is growing fast. And we're a dynamic and we're a vibrant state. We're number one for business. We're number one for places to do business and places to grow. And so the governor's asked us at the state level to focus on 50-year planning for water, transportation, education, and land use. But we realize at the state level, a lot of times we're at the 30,000-foot level, and where a lot of the action is going to take place, and the exciting things that will take place, are here at the municipal level. And I want you to know, first of all, I love Provo. A few years ago, I had the chance to serve as Mayor Billings' spokesperson, and this was my license plate on my car. And I drove it around with pride, and I made sure I obeyed all relevant speed limits, because when your car says Provo, you drive with respect. And I kept it until I moved to Salt Lake City, and I literally moved 6 houses away from Fraternity Row, and between the Provo on the back of my car and my Republican bumper sticker, my little kids were scared to death we were going to have our car slashed or get beat up. But with pride, I wore the Provo logo for a long time. And I want to talk a little bit about how many of you have ever been up to the Cougar Eat up at the university, or up at Brigham Young University. And you see a mural up there, and the mural up there highlights the vision that many people had, that this campus and this university would grow a great deal. And what has kept Provo moving along so well and doing so well are so many people in the community that have had vision and then have acted on that vision. I think of Doug Smoot, when there was a fear there for a while that we would be getting a Kmart on University Avenue instead of the Academy Library. And I think of my old boss, Mayor Billings, who, once the library moved, had the vision of saying, hey, why doesn't Provo deserve its own performing arts center downtown? We don't want to have to rely totally on the university. And now we have the Covey Center for the Arts in downtown Provo. I think of Tom Parker, who was a great neighborhood leader in Provo, who came up with this idea that we were going to have a Saturday's farmers market. And it started with about 6 vendors in the City Hall parking lot. And I think of people like Leland Gammett, who said, I think we can get some banks to build some big buildings downtown and to help revitalize downtown. And Provo has turned around because so many of you have had so much vision. My daughter and son-in-law recently moved to Provo, and I came to see them last Friday night, and downtown Provo is packed. I couldn't find parking. The restaurants are full, the music venues are full. Provo's the center of the action here in Utah County, and in the nation for the music scene, because you have a lot of people with a lot of vision. But you also have a lot of people with a lot of children. And I'm here to talk specifically about demographics. Let me show you our family, and I'm a blended family, yours, mine, and ours. And between us, we have 7 kids. 7 kids in 6 schools. It keeps us busy. But we're not the anomaly in Utah. How many of you come from families with more than 2 children, or have families of more than 2 children? Okay, we're the ones fueling the population growth here in Utah. We're the ones who we're providing the future for. We talk a lot about Californians moving in, but in reality, we're going to be educating and raising and providing jobs to the tune of about 70% to take care of ourselves. I want to highlight really quick my wife's family here. This was taken about 10 years ago, and again, they're a little above average for Utah. But her grandparents had 8 children, and each of their children had a minimum of between 5 and 8 children. And now the grandchildren are doing their part to keep up. And what's interesting about this Utah family is only 2 grandchildren live outside the state of Utah. The rest of them live right here in the middle of the Beehive State. And of the 2 that live in Utah, one's in graduate school at Vanderbilt, and he's anxious to come back and bring his degree and raise his family here in Utah. Why? Because it's a wonderful place to live. The cost of living is affordable, the people are spectacular, the education system is solid, we've got a lot of positive things going in Utah, and it means a lot of us who have a lot of kids need to be prepared 50 years out for their jobs, for their education, for their water supply, for their transportation network. Let me now show you the highlight of one I want to capture right here. And this is where we're headed with Provo City and where we think as a state Provo City is going to go. And I'll tell you a little bit about our track record. As state planning coordinator, I serve on a committee that every year projects where we think the population is going to go. Andrew Jackson from Mountain Lands is on our committee as well. And we started in 1967, and every year we've been right, except for what we initially projected for Washington County. We thought Washington County's growth would be half of what it is. But then we realized, how are we so right on everything else and so wrong on Washington County? Well, it was simple. We apparently in 1967 didn't factor in air conditioning. Air conditioning came on, and shazam, look what's happened to St. George and Washington County. So we think we're pretty close with what the numbers are going to show here in Utah County. Or excuse me, here specifically in Provo, about 128,000, give or take, and we're thinking in the next 50 years you'll be to 185,000. I mean, that you're going to have infill. As a city, Cindy Richards, when she was on the council, and others spent a lot of time working on, do we do infill? How do we fit more people in different spaces? How do we reinvigorate our neighborhoods? I live in Sugar House in Salt Lake. A lot of homes are getting torn down, and larger homes are getting built up. Why? Because our families today aren't happy with an 1,800 square foot home or a 2,200 square foot home. But how does that change the complexion of the neighborhood? Those are the key questions that you in this room will be answering because of what you need to be able to do to shape the future and to see what happens here in Provo. But again, Provo is the hub. And Provo is a city that provides so much of the business or so much of the vision for the rest of this county. It's wonderful to sit here in this facility that when I was here working with Dixon Homes and Leland Gamut and others was just an idea. Oh, Provo needs a downtown convention center. A lot of people say, well, why does Provo need a downtown convention center? Well, I think you can come here today and see why we need a downtown convention center and the wonderful things it can do for the valley. But just as Provo is going to continue to grow, you need to be prepared as the center city for Utah County to absorb what's going to happen here in Utah County. Because in population, we find that population follows where the land is cheaper. So while Provo will continue to grow, it's your cities to the south primarily, and on the other side of the lake, they're going to face a lot of the growth here. So we're looking at Utah County in the next 50 years from going to around 500,000 to just shy of 1.5 million. That's a huge impact that will be taking place in many of our lifetimes. That's a huge impact that we need to plan for water and for transportation and for land use planning. But again, Utah County is part of a state that's going to grow rapidly as well. Here you can see Utah's population. We're on our way to doubling. And again, if you look back to the slide of my wife's family and my family, we're doubling because we have larger family sizes. And we're adding 13,000 new school students a year. So, like it or not, and we generally embrace growth, it's going to change the complexity and the look and the vision of our communities if we're not focused on it. So it'll impact everything from lot size changes for homes to redevelopment. We'll continue to be the youngest state in the country. Our economy will ever more need to be diversified. Gone are the days when it was just a Geneva Steel or a similar company that was driving the industry in a valley. And finally, we're increasing in population, but this last slide I have shows that our age structure is changing. The blue is what you see right now. The black is where we're headed. And what it means is we're going to have we're going to be taking care of a lot of our parents. Frankly, in 50 years, we'll be taking care of ourselves. And so we need to keep on that focus that we'll have a smaller core group that'll be taking care of an ever-expanding group of children and an ever-expanding group of adults. We've met challenges before. In 1849, the pioneers came here and settled Fort Utah and faced really daunting odds in getting this community up and established. But they did a terrific job. And what do we have today? The wonderful city that we all love called Provo. And what will our kids inherit 50 years from now? A wonderful city called Provo with even greater vision and greater opportunities. And it will continue to be a great place to live, work, and for our children and for ourselves to do business. Thanks so much, and thanks for your concern for Provo.